Welcome to TARTLEcast with your hosts Alexander McKegg and Jason Rigby, where humanity steps into the future and source data defines the path.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of TARTLEcast. You're here with your host Alexander McKegg, and I'm the co-founder of TARTLE. And this is my advisory board member for our technology.
Yeah, that's right. My name's Cody Eilar. I'm with MyLens.
And so do you want to, before we break into talking about TARTLE and the social value propositions and what you and I both are trying to champion?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody a little about what Lens is doing?
Yeah, so Lens is attempting to flip the data model of the internet, which sounds like a tall order, but it's actually a lot simpler than you might think. If we just give individuals control of their own information and let them give out subscriptions to companies that want interest or that have interest in their data, then we actually increase the accuracy that people have or that businesses have of the data that they're subscribing to. So when I control my data, I can change my phone number, my email address all in one spot, and anybody who's subscribed to me, my data, they get that information for free. So I don't have to go to Netflix. I don't have to go to Amazon. I don't have to go to all these different places to update one piece of information. I just update it under my container. And that's really the essence of what we're building at Lens.
So that's interesting. So what you're doing is you have a centralized authority, and that authority is the self.
That is the self. That's right.
And the self is the thing that chooses to relinquish that information back and forth, whether it be to a single party or to multiple parties.
That's right. That's right. We're trying to increase transparency. There are so many different websites that we have to sign up to on the web today, and we can't keep track of everybody who has all of our information.
Right.
And by putting it all in one location, you can really start to see, Netflix has this, and P&M, my utility company, they have access to this various information. And a lot of times I have a vested interest in making sure that information is up to date,
right,
so that I don't have to, miss a bill, or, that they miss a bill, for example, and I don't have electricity the next day, for example, right?
Yeah.
And all of that comes down to subscribe to my information, come to me for the data, instead of, going around with all these data brokers and trying to do, forensic analysis to figure out what my real data is based on what website I updated last.
I totally agree with that. And that's a big chunk of what TARTLE's mission is.
That's right.
But beyond that, right? So beyond the technical aspect of it and, the obvious benefits.
Right.
What is it in terms of the social change in what you're trying to do, what you're trying to push that aligns with what we're doing at TARTLE, and that's why you're here as an advisor talking about the technology. How is it that Lens is actually pushing more of a social change to drive the value back to the people? You want to talk about that? Because I know we brought that up yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. My co-founder and I, Mark Chavez, really have a shared value system in that the internet of today is very broken. Yeah. You've got companies like Facebook and Google that have built an entire empire off of harvesting our information.
Interesting word.
And they're harvesting it, and they're using that. We're not the product. I mean, we are the product, right? We are not the customer of these platforms, and I'm sure you've made that clear in other podcasts you've done. And as a result, our lives are getting more and more inundated with addiction, and they're also manipulating us, right? They're selling manipulation. They're not selling this is a great search engine. Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, the way they're making their money is by manipulating us and making us change our decisions and getting us to spend more time on these platforms, getting us addicted so that we're wasting our time. Because at the end of the day, the most valuable resource that any of us have is our time.
Interesting.
And if we're spending all of our time addicted to a platform such that, we can make these guys billions of dollars, and we're getting poorer as a result, there's something wrong going on. There's this black data market underneath the hood.
There's an imbalance, right?
There's an imbalance. There's absolutely an imbalance with this. And so both my co-founder and I are very passionate about this, and we want to develop technology that empowers people, that empowers them to take control of their lives and to spend time doing things that are actually really important. Not, the infinite scroll, but actually talking to people and updating information in one location and having it done, and having everyone come to you instead of you going to everyone. And I think that we can build an equitable system, and it's all just about, trying to put everything around the individual.
No, I think that's wild. And, we were talking to someone yesterday, and they had expressed, well, I don't really care. I'm on Facebook all the time. It kind of gives me a value. But there seemed to be some sort of miss because you had to educate that individual past the point, okay, it's not just the fact that you're using Facebook. It's what's happening beyond that aspect.
That's right. That's
and
right.
It's that part of the beyond that people aren't actually aware of. The general public, the more informed, less informed masses, I would say.
That's right.
So it's not only what our technologies are trying to do as a function of giving people some sort of value, right?
Right.
From a technical aspect. But beyond that, this is a social change that we're trying to initiate. Right?
Absolutely.
It's almost re-educating a larger populace to show that they still have the power. They always have had the power, but it's showing them how to use their information correctly so they can derive that value.
That's right. And one of the interesting conversations that you and I had recently, I believe it was yesterday, was just around the fact that AI is all driven by data, right? Everybody thinks that, AI is going to be this transformative thing. It's going to be writing music for us. It's going to be translating languages for us. But that AI is all fed data that you and I have produced.
It's all human produced data.
That's
and
right.
For the model for it to create itself, right? Somebody had to design that model.
That's right.
The inputs were all put in by human input.
That's right.
And that's the biggest thing. So when people are like, well, what's going on with the AI? Is it truly going to benefit us? Well, I don't know, And from the way I see it, there seems to be a diversion away from what it means to be a human being in technology.
That's right.
We've created all this technology to evolve us. But really all we've done is evolve the technology, but it's left us behind.
That's right.
There's a lack of social involvement, right? Spiritual involvement, financial involvement of an individual. But the technology is just launching itself. But what we're trying to do is bring both of those paths back together.
That's right.
So that one truly evolves with the other and they work in parallel or tandem.
That's right.
Some sort of cohesiveness.
That's right. And both of our companies are in the tech world, right?
Yeah.
And we're coming into this realm now where technology is meeting law, and technology we can just code around the law all day.
Yeah.
And so, as pioneers in this industry, we need to make sure that we write code that is equitable and that, gives people the power that they deserve over their information.
That's a fabulous concept. So if you can always curtail something to change it just enough to sit outside of the law, it would behoove you, or be most important that when you are designing something for the larger group, that it is something that does no harm.
Yep.
It has principles of equanimity, right? It has the highest form of ethics and morals so that you do no damage, right? All you do is try and uplift everyone at once because, like I always say, rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how things should be designed, because if you have the ability to frankly write code outside of that law, it then says that the person with the power should, in the best interest of everybody else, do what they can to then use it as an uplifting thing rather than something that can, use someone as just a resource tool.
Right, right. And to be fair to these companies, a lot of them had this very utopian view, right? Everything will be free. We'll throw in some ads here and there, and, that way we can pay the electricity bills for our servers and whatnot. But that has turned into this empire that has completely, in my opinion, is just, it's affecting so many different, negative things throughout the world. And we can see that, in Southeast Asia with, the Rohingya. We can see that in the way that politics are being manipulated now through the use of social media. And it's not that the people that built the technology had like this maniacal, intent when they set out to build this. In fact, I think they were very, they had very good intentions.
I bet you they were just like us.
Just like us. And they thought, well, how can we build something that's great for everybody, but we can still make money off of it, right? And that's always the dilemma. But I think that we can build all these tools. We can build an equitable system for everybody and not have to exploit the data that they're producing.
Right. There's no need for the exploitation. And what has been shown with both our platforms, right?
Yeah.
Is that our platforms have the ability to drive revenue, but have ethics and morals and equanimity first.
That's right.
Right? And I think that's the difference in the business model of what we're trying to create.
That's right.
And I think it's important that you being a part of the team, the advisory team for TARTLE, is that our companies should be working in collaboration.
Absolutely.
And my concept is there's been so many companies that, all these startups that come around.
Yeah.
And they're all doing all these separate things. Everybody's gaming for a small amount of resources and the attention from the masses. But wouldn't it make more sense if they all came together in a collaborative effort to solve the same problem that they're all trying to work on rather than fight against one another?
That's right.
Because it's almost like they're doubling the same energy they were trying to fight in the first place.
Right.
So it'd be my contention that people like you and I, who have those same goals, missions, values, and purpose, that are trying to do that good,
that's right,
should come together to solve that problem with our resources combined.
That's right. And there is a whole community, especially on GitHub. I mean, you look at things like the DAT project.
Yep.
These are, protocols that have been developed to have peer-to-peer access to data. Why should I have to go through Facebook to talk to you? I should just be able to talk directly to you, right?
Absolutely.
You've got projects like Secure Scuttlebutt, another project that's trying to create this secure messaging system between individuals. And then the technology that we're using at Lens is Blockstack, which is another empowering technology. And so our companies, I think, are standing on the shoulders of giants to build a lot of this stuff.
Right.
And we're all going towards the same goal, though. We're all trying to figure out, how can we get away from social media? How can we build technology that empowers all of us, and not just the few on top? And then, what are the right collaborations? Because like you said, ultimately, there's no reason why all these companies have to be fighting each other.
They do it constantly.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same things been happening over and over. So it's like, how do we change that model?
That's right.
And hopefully that what you and I are doing can help prove something like that.
Absolutely.
Especially with DAP and Blockstack and all those other initiatives that are going on. And I think that's the most important factor we need to continue to look at. And I think in a form of protest, is, I guess, how a lot of people have designed their applications.
No.
I get it at one point, but at the other point, we also have to figure out a way to scale this in a function that's going to work, well for everybody.
That's right.
Right? Protest is one thing, but then taking actual action and then not fixing something that's broken, but enhancing a system that we already have so that it does become more equitable and fair.
That's right. Yeah, we still have to have, value propositions, right? In your case, customers need to be making money from their data.
Sure.
And then in my case, enterprises need to be getting more accurate data from their customers, right?
Absolutely.
And those value propositions, they don't mean that we have to go out and exploit all these things. We can still build the software in a very equitable sense.
Right. And it's not difficult to do. It's just a matter of us sitting down, finding one another within our ecosystems that we have.
That's right.
Having these conversations and making something blossom from it.
That's right. And everybody involved in the system, whether it's investors, potential customers, developers, anybody in the system, they have to really understand why we're doing this. And if they share those core values, it almost doesn't, it brings us all together in a way that we can solve the problem. Like, oh, you've got this problem, and I know how to plug that hole.
Right.
So in my opinion, it's bring it all together. We have shared values, and we're going to succeed.
Yeah, it's a lot of us that see something and we want to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. But then when we go to fix it, we find that there are these barriers to people that are just like, whoa, we don't want to have that change right now. Well, I understand that you may have a collection of the resources and you're a select few of people, but the greater majority is asking for this change.
Right.
And we're giving you the tool and the option to do so and to align with the values of everyone in society.
That's right.
So are you willing to take that step with us?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's the difficulty we've found so far, is finding people to take those steps with us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's definitely a subculture of people currently, and I believe that culture is growing, that recognize the problems of the internet today, right? I think there are a lot of people that are aware of what's going on, but there are still quite a few people that are okay with the status quo at the moment. But it's going to be one of those social movements that, it takes time. And like one of my co-founder, he's got a great example of how he protests this whole thing. He's completely off of social media. Like you can't find him on Twitter. You can't find him on LinkedIn. And you have to work. You have to get his lens, right? You have to find Mark's lens. And that's actually been an interesting challenge in our company, because he recently, he changed his name from when he used to work at Salesforce, his name was Trey Chancellor. Yeah. And then more recently, he changed it back to his birth name, which was Mark Chavez, because he's originally from here in, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, as a result, when people try to find him, it's really difficult. But if they had just subscribed to his lens,
they would have had it when he updated that.
They would have just had the data. Yeah, that's right. He could have changed his name. He could have changed his phone number. He could change his birth date, and everybody would have gotten.
And if you're a totally stranger, you want to know who he is, why don't you just buy his name off of him then through TARTLE, right?
Exactly.
And I think that sets us at a good point, though. And like you said, it's a social movement, right? And like organic food, that example I used the other day.
Yeah.
It's been 40 years before it's actually taken off, and now people everywhere get it. It's like, I really should eat organic food.
Yep.
All the evidence says that this is what I should be doing.
That's right.
And what you and I are hoping is that our smaller social group that we currently have, it doesn't take that 40-year period for that to actually be caught on.
That's right. It can
this
happen
isn't
today.
just a hippie movement, right? No. This is something that is going to change how we move into the future, how we do business, how we interact with one another, and that's what's important.
That's right. Yeah, because the way that we make money today is ultimately changing, right? The robots are doing more and more work for us.
Right.
So why not have the robots work for all of us instead of, the top 1% of society? No. And I think that's really the social change we're trying to bring. We're trying to show that economically we're being repressed by our own data. And if we take control of that, we can bring equity, and we can make the world a place where you can have the data work for you and not the other way around.
That was poetic.
Thank you.
No, that was good. And how would someone go on to check out Lens? Where would they go?
You go to mylens.io. We have some basic information on that, but really what we're trying to establish at this point is a really great set of applications that leverage this whole idea. But feel free to jump on mylens.io and share your lens with us. In fact, the only way we can get a hold of you is if you actually share a lens back with the company. So we're going to subscribe to your data. And we're drinking our own champagne, so to speak, in that regard.
Yeah, so. Kool-Aid, smoking your own dope,
smoking
anything
it
like
all.
that.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, cool deal, Cody. Thanks for doing that, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to TARTLEcast with your hosts Alexander McKegg and Jason Rigby, where humanity steps into the future and source data defines the path. What's your data worth?